Welcome back, guys. In this video, we're going to be making a mold out of the part that we made in the last video. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. It's pretty cool. It kind of shows how we got this part. So yeah, let's get to it. So to make the mold, I have decided we're going to make this in a 3-piece mold, just based on the shape of this item, right? You can kind of see how it was done in the factory. You can see there's a split line here. It goes all the way down, and then there's a split line right here that goes all the way down. So that's pretty much how we're going to do it. We're going to have a top half with it sitting like this, or yeah, like, let's see, like this. So we'll have a top half with it sitting like this, and then the other half will be it sitting like this, and then there will be a piece on this back to make this flat piece. So it makes it easier to pull out of the mold. So what we're going to be using is this clay here. It's a sculpting clay. Well, I don't know if it's sculpting, but it's kind of made for modeling up things. And then we're going to pretty much lift this up off of our piece. This is a piece of plexiglass I got. I've used a mirror in the past, but I broke it last time, so we'll see if plexiglass fares a little better this time. But we'll have it up off our piece, probably maybe a ½ inch or so. And then I'll use this clay to like hold it up. So yeah, if we have our clay holding it up, we'll be able to pour our top half and then still have a piece in our bottom half, or top half, however you want to look at it, that'll be able to press it for our compression molding. So yeah, for the forged carbon process, you have to have kind of like a plunger system to compress it. So you'll see a little bit more of what I'm talking about when we get to making the other side of this mold. So yeah, let's get to it. So here I just have some wax in some hot water, so it's a little bit more malleable than this stuff's pretty hard. So this makes it a little bit softer. It's gonna make it easier to put it in all these sides here. So in here, and stuff it under here. So yeah, just a little trick. Yeah, so we're gonna chop this up, put a little angle on it, and we'll be able to smooth this out. Also helps to have a heat gun on hand so you can kind of heat up this wax as you remove it. All right, so now you can see after about an hour's worth of work here, this is what we've got. So it's not perfectly smooth. You can see some of these weird spots here, but it's gonna work, right? So you're gonna have like a couple little bumps, but we'll be able to sand those out later in the actual mold. But the important part is, now that it's set up, it has like the smallest draft angle on it. So then pretty much after you get everything where you want it, you can take your hot glue gun, very manly, I know, and kind of glue around everywhere because it will seep out. So you're going to want to glue it up pretty good. So I'm gonna glue along all these edges and then the outside edges as well. I may do the inside edges. I found that was kind of hard, so I might not. All this is wood trim, like for a door or maybe a wall that I got from my local hardware store. I'm sure you can guess which one. But yeah, so now we're just gonna throw some hot glue around this thing. Yep, and keep going. All right, there you can see we have everything all glued up all around. We got it all around, even over here, even though it's not directly against the surface where our resin's gonna be. It's still gonna seep out underneath this board. We sealed up here, and then we also sealed underneath this board, which you can see right there. So there should be no way for this resin to flow out of here. Yeah, that's really important to make sure you have a good seal. It sets up kind of fast, so it's not super big deal, but it's going to go all over the place if you don't have a seal. So this tape you see is Tyvek tape. It's for house siding, or underneath their siding. They put that plastic sheet over everything. That's all this is. It's really good for creating a pretty good release on epoxies and stuff. All right, so this next part took me a good long while to figure out what I was doing. So making forged carbon fiber does not use the typical mold making process. So you have to create a hard mold out of, you could make it out of aluminum if you had like a CNC machine, or sent your design off to be milled out of aluminum or steel even. I don't have that kind of budget nor access to that kind of machinery. So I went with the second option, which is to create a hard resin mold out of whatever you're making. So I went about this a couple different ways, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you what I did wrong. So there you go. So this is my first attempt. Honestly, not the worst I've ever seen. Right? Looks pretty good. This was done with one pour, all epoxy. Yeah, it's split right here because I didn't get high enough on there. And you can see all this spidering around here. Part of my puck, or part of the original piece, stayed in there. So there's a lot of problems with this one. So then I decided to do a couple of pours. So this happened in 3 different pours. Poured one, let it cure a little bit, or at least get hard. Poured the second one, poured the third one, and this one is by far one of the worst, right? So we got cracking down there, bubbles. Still, again, parts of my stuff, or parts of the original piece are still in here. So, also not a good idea. So then I thought maybe I could use some gel coat. So I got our piece up on our clay just like that, put some gel coat down, and then tried to do the epoxy again, this time with a slower cure epoxy that was specifically designed for deeper pours. So you can see it turned out a lot better as far as the surface goes, the surface finish. But it's still, you can see down here where there was air bubbles that formed between the epoxy and the gel coat, and it was just a gigantic nightmare. All of that led me to looking for a proper way to do this. So the original video I watched was by Easy Composites in the UK, and they had this urethane resin that they used. Obviously I'm in America and I can't order things like that from the UK on an economical scale, so I ended up finding this stuff. And this is what I am using. So this is a 2-part urethane resin. I don't know all the specs on it. All I know is that it gets very hard and it creates a good mold surface, and you could pour it pretty deep. So this shipped to me, it's a 20-pound kit. So Each of these weighs about 10 pounds, and you mix them 1 to 1. So pretty easy to use. They separate pretty easily, so you have to make sure you mix them. Yeah, that's pretty important, I think. Otherwise, you'll just end up with some really thick stuff at the bottom and some thin stuff in whatever you're making. So I'd suggest getting a mixer, because these are a pain in the butt to mix. So yeah, let's mix some of this up and pour it in there and see what we got. Also, this stuff stinks, so wear a mask. It's always good to have a mask. If you want to live good and long, get yourself a mask. Yeah, you can see what I'm talking about here. Pretty solid stuff. So that's all in the bottom, and it's really deep. Like, there's probably a good 2 inches of that settling in there. So, and this has only been sitting for 2 months. So yeah, mix it well. All right, so one thing you're gonna wanna do before you do any of the mixing of your resin is going to be to put some kind of release agent on this. Now, release agent can come in the form of a spray can like this, this is my preferred this is my preferred release agent. You could also use a kind of wax that they make for this, and then there's also a PVA, which is like a physical layer of peelable plastic that you spray out of a gun. I don't really like the PVA as much because I get not as good of a finish out of it. So we just polished this part and we got it exactly how we want it. And then if we go spray this PVA over top of it, then it in my personal experience with it, it has diminished my finish. So there's no point in me getting that kind of finish out of it if I'm just going to spray something on top of it. It's going to leave little bubbles, little imperfections, and little, make it a little bit duller. So this is a chemical release agent as opposed to what a PVA would be, which would be like a physical release agent. But yeah, before you start putting any of this in there, you don't want to make it become one, right? So you want it to come apart because you want to create parts out of it. So if you forget the release agent, which I almost did, that part's gone. You won't get it back. So release agent's important. I think the instructions on this say 3 to 4 coats. So that's what we're gonna do. 2 to 3 coats. 2 to 3 coats, 5 to 10 minutes apart. So that's what we're gonna do. Alright, there you have it. She's all poured and ready to go. So we'll come back tomorrow and this should be nice and cured, and we can take off the outer pieces of wood, flip it over, and do the other side. So yeah, now it's just a waiting game. Alright, we're back. It's the next day. This mold has had some time to set up, and now we're ready to pull off the pieces of wood. So yeah, let's get to that. Alright, so that came off pretty good. You can see that, like I was saying, it does seep out, but since we had that glue there, nothing was able to get out. And it did go through the cracks a little bit, but that's okay. It's something we can clean up. So, look at that. She peels right off. Alright, so next we just got to get all this clay out of here. If you want to reuse it, make sure you're not throwing it into anything that you don't want in your clay, obviously. Alright, so as you can see, it came out pretty nice. So what I ended up having to do was stick a screwdriver in the hole that already existed, and flip it over and kind of tap it out, and that's just because of the nature of this mold. So yep, we'll get all this clay cleaned out of here. Alright, so we got these done. I have this back on my sanding block because I was putting some of my chemical release agent on the back side of it, which is going to be touching inside of. The reason I did that was because some of the resin could seep into the cracks underneath our door handle and in between our mold, and then it could possibly lock our piece to the other half of the mold that we're going to make. So you want to make sure that you have a good release surface on everything that could possibly be touched. So we put some release agent in there, we put some release agent on here. This next part is pretty repetitive, right? We're going to put this handle back into the mold, then we're going to put the blocks around it again, or the pieces of trim around it again. Make sure we have plenty of release agent, whatever you choose, PVA, chemical release. So whatever you choose, chemical release, PVA, wax, whatever release agent you choose, and then we're going to pour the other part of the mold. So this should be the second part of the mold out of 3, and then we're going to have to wait another day and then pour the third one. So let's get to it. Alright, one thing I almost forgot is that we need to create little, basically wedge-shaped pieces on our mold surface so that we can, basically what that'll do is allow us to put a screwdriver or a chisel or wedge or whatever the proper tool would be. I'm going to use a screwdriver. So you can get in there and you can kind of pry it apart or like pop it up. Otherwise, it's going to be 2 pieces perfectly sandwiched together, and it's going to be pretty much impossible. So yeah, this is going to be kind of hard now that I already got this form here. So I'm just going to kind of do something like that. And hopefully it doesn't turn out terrible. right, so now we have the top half of this mold done. You saw me cleaning it up there a little bit and taking it apart. And now it's time to pour the third part of this mold. So that pretty much is the same as what I have been doing this whole time, except we're just gonna have it on this end now with the boards around all the sides. So yeah, I'm gonna set that up, pour this next one, and we should be finished making this mold. So let's get to it. So the one thing I forgot to do with this third piece, was to put these little reliefs so that we can like pop it apart. So I did put hot glue there because there was a big gap. You can see kind of a gap right here between how wide this piece is and how wide this piece is. So there is hot glue like around the whole thing. So I think hopefully that'll be enough for me to be able to pop it off, since there's no real, it's just a flat piece for the most part. There's no real contours for anything to get stuck to. So yeah, let's try that real quick. Yep, just like that. So I guess that's enough for this piece. Like I said, there's no real way of things getting stuck to this, so it makes it kind of easy, kind of low threat. So yeah, this is our whole mold now. Well, there are our molds. This is the one we just made. This one I made first, a couple weeks before this one. Really, it was a couple months, but... So yeah, you can see that I missed what I was talking about earlier, these little reliefs on this one. You can see this one I put 4 on instead of just the 2 on this one, which makes it a lot easier to take apart. So yeah, now you can kind of see the iteration of our molds in their development and getting better. And this is when I switched to our urethane resin, which seems to be the move. So this one I screwed up. I didn't put any clay in this hole. So when I went to go pull this out of this mold, it broke this whole piece off. And then I tried to super glue it back on. You can kind of see a crack there, and that little piece missing. And then I just decided that it would be better just to pour a whole new one. So yeah, I didn't really want to waste my time seeing if that piece would work. If we just chopped off that little nub, it was not really worth, getting a whole part made and then finding out that it's not even gonna work, and then you have to re-pour your mold again. So I just went ahead, we're gonna scrap that piece, and then we just made the new top. So yeah, I think all in all, it works pretty good. This new mold is a little bit tighter than our old mold. And I think that just has to do with the draft angle. Like this one just falls into place. So we'll see if that becomes a problem or not. I'm kind of hoping it won't. But yeah, only time will tell. Well, that's all I have for this one. I hope you guys learned something. If you have any questions about any of the stuff that I used or any of the techniques, leave them in the comments below. Maybe you have a better idea on how to do some of these things. Leave them in the comments below as well. I'd like to hear your thoughts. Stay tuned for the next video. We're gonna actually be making a part out of carbon, and that should be pretty interesting. So yeah, thanks for watching.